Hey everyone, and welcome to the Human Design Podcast with me, your host, Emma Dunwoody. I'm a qualified master coach and human behaviour specialist, as well as being a qualified human design coach. And I work with clients every single day to answer the big questions. Who am I? Why am I here? And what is my purpose? I also assist them to transition from the person they think they should be to the person they really are on the inside. I teach people how to actually live their design instead of just knowing it. And if this is something that you want to do too, well, stay tuned or reach out for private coaching or Human Design Unpacks, where I show you exactly how to live your design. Hey everyone, and welcome to today's podcast. Now, today we're starting a new series, and today it's all about, or at least this series is all about parenting. I know I have touched on this subject a couple of times. I've even had today's guest on before, and she's one of our experts in HDX. We want to dive into some real specifics, really all the areas I get asked questions about all the time. So today we're going to talk about type, but before we get to parenting by type, Kristin Shorter, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. It's a pleasure.
It's lovely to have you here. For those of you who maybe haven't, they're not in HDX, so they haven't seen the classes that you've taught in there, or maybe haven't listened to the other podcast. Do you want to just introduce yourself and, of course, include your human design? That would be great.
So I'm a 1-3 generator, and I have an emotional solar plexus that is open. And so I started my parenting journey very frazzled and fried emotionally, and had really numbed myself from even being able to feel feelings or understand feelings, because I was just so overwhelmed by them. By the time that I was having children, I didn't know how to really emotionally attune to them. And so learning human design has been such a godsend, because it's allowed me to understand myself, but also understand my children, and understand that, me being able to feel was actually a gift. It's actually something that is a superpower, and it's allowed me to tap into how my kids are feeling, what's going on with them, and parent each child according to their needs.
Yeah, I love that. And I think it's really cool even hearing your perspective, because I'm obviously a parent of 2 and I have a defined solar plexus. And, learning to manage my freaking defined solar plexus was a journey in itself, especially the moment I discovered human design and was like, oh my God, it's me, because, the other 3 are undefined in my family. So, that whole journey for me has been really fascinating. And, I'm in a place now, my eldest just turned 15, my youngest is just about to turn 12. And, there's been I'm a 3-5, so there's been some real ups and downs. And I feel like we've really got to this place where, I always knew that my sweet spot would be the teen years. So I do feel like, things have really started to settle down, and like just seeing my children come into their own has just, oh my God, it just lights me up. It really, really excites me. But as I say, I'm a 3-5 man gen, and it's been all over the place, and I'm a behavioral specialist. So you think I would have had I had it all worked out, but I so didn't, right? So what I'd really love to do is today, let's talk about parenting by type, because obviously I worked it out through my trial and error. But I would love people to be able to maybe hit the ground running a little bit more than perhaps I did. So let's talk about that. Let's go through each type and specifically sort of be clear on how can we support our children from the focus of type. Do you want to kick off with the manifesto, or I'll let you drive? How about that?
Yeah, that sounds great. And I do want to just share a really cool secret about human design. There's an aspect of human design that is quantum. Okay. And what that means is that whenever Ra had first talked about the design was activated by neutrinos, well, we hadn't discovered neutrinos back in 1987. But since we have discovered neutrinos, they found that Neutrinos actually have mass, which means they do carry a memory. And so what that means is, even if you know nothing about human design, or your human design or your child's human design, just looking at the human design body graph and showing your children their human design body graph is enough for their cells to be imprinted and to start carrying that as their cells begin to replicate and grow.
I love that. I've heard you, you've shared that before, I think in HTX, and I've literally, I think that same day ran out and showed my kids their chart.
Yes,
went,
right.
Check it out. Like, check it out. This is
I did
so
the
I
same
love that.
thing. Okay, so let's start with the manifester. Manifestors are one of the rarest types in all of human design. They are creative, they are creators, and they create with their words. They are designed to initiate people, initiate projects, initiate things, initiate themselves into action. The manifestor actually needs to initiate in order to create, and they don't need others. Okay, they are very capable, very self-sufficient and independent. And my son, who is a manifestor, he didn't want me to dress him. Even if his clothes were inside out, he didn't care. What he cared about is doing things himself. And so it was a struggle, because you have this child who is very small and doesn't know about the dangers and the evils in the world. And then they are so capable, they just go out into the world and they don't tell you what they're doing. And it can be really frightful for us parents. And when that happens, we believe that we need to really protect these children, these manifestors, because they don't know what's going on. They don't have any clue. And we don't understand that they are actually the one type in human design that is designed to be self-sufficient and independent and capable. And they're designed to go out and like see a butterfly and then follow the butterfly out into the woods and then see a squirrel and then see this. And then it's nighttime and then they start walking home and they get home and you're like, the cops are there and the fire truck's there and everybody's been searching for your child at all the neighbors' houses. And so then we get scared and we think, oh my God, I have to protect this child and I have to keep them from initiating, keep them from creating, and that shuts their power down. And what we actually need to do is teach them to inform, or teach them to tell us that, hey, this is what I'm doing. Whenever we look at the manifestor's aura, we see a very closed and repelling aura. And it's really, it can feel like, as a parent, you can't get through to your child. They keep pushing you away. They won't listen to you. They won't receive like correction from you, and they won't receive your love either. It can be very hard to feel close to the manifestor child. And here's the secret on how to do that.
Tell me.
You can't want anything from your manifestor. When you go to your manifestor with expectations to do a chore or to meet a deadline or to ask them about, their plans, you're going to get that closed and repelling aura. When you come to your manifestor with no expectation, you're just like, hey, I just want to sit next to you. And you don't ask them anything. That's when you're actually going to be able to touch the vulnerability of your manifestor.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. This sounds, a really good friend of mine has a manifested daughter and she's the oldest. So like everything in her is so, no, I've got this, like I'm walking my own path. And, my friend is undefined in the solar plexus and her manifestor is an emotional manifestor. And it was such this roller coaster. And then human design, and the two of us just, talking it out over and over. She's got to this place where her manifestor, who is now just about to turn 12, she's like independent and confident and, like she is still an emotional roller coaster, but no one's, running for cover or trying to change it or anything like that. So of course her emotional wave just moves through, but she's also really artistic. So all of her emotions being channeled into the art. So I think it's so, so beautiful. I think it's really
Yes.
beautiful. But I would love, like, because I mean, I get that my kids are MGs, so ultimately they're not manifestors. But one in particular, I mean, they both have those sort of very energetically independent traits. And when we get to MGs, we'll talk about them a little bit. But one of the things I'm super curious about, if you're parenting a manifestor, they're independent. I love what you just said, just need nothing from them. And as a parent, that's freaking hard, right? So,
Oh yeah.
so how do we teach them the boundaries? How do we, keep them safe? I mean, I get, even as I say with MGs, it's like they have to go out and scuff their knees and graze their elbows and fall down and, all that sort of stuff and work that stuff out for themselves. But what are some really clear practical tips for parents of manifestors to be able to let them be sort of wild and free, but also
Yes.
give them the boundaries that they'll need?
Well, for sure, teach them to inform, and their strategy works both ways. We need to be informing them just as much as they need to be informing us. And so teaching them that, hey, thank you for informing me. When you inform me, that really helps me. And here's what we're going to do today, and have it posted somewhere so that they can see it, so that they can remember it. Letting them know when plans are changing as soon as possible, because for a manifestor, their mind is 3 steps ahead of everybody else. And so they literally need to know what is going on in your mind or your schedule or their schedule, so that they can kind of insert those pictures where they need to go and kind of put that into their image.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. That is so powerful, because it is that dance, between letting them be independent and being like, well, at some point you do need to learn boundaries. And, the timing piece, I think, is really, really important. So let's move on. I think we should move on to generators. Let's talk about these busy little bees that, everybody has in 3 different sports and 7 different art classes to just keep busy. Tell us a bit about the generator and parenting the generator.
Yeah. So the generator, these are the builders of the world, and they have a defined sacral, which is the most powerful motor in all of human design. And the motors in human design motivate us. And the way to activate that motor is by doing things that they like to do. When we're adults, we call it work. But essentially, when we go to work, we're trading our life force energy for money. Well, kids aren't really getting money, right? But they're trading their life force energy for something. And so they have to like what they're doing. And their aura is very open and enveloping. It's pulling life to them. And so they really don't need to do anything. They just kind of need to sit there and let life come to them. But they need to understand that in order to know what they want to do, they're going to be using their sacral in order to respond. And that means it's coming from their gut. So their gut needs to be making all these sounds and grumbling and rumbling and whatever that looks like or sounds like. And these types are here to work. They're actually designed to work and do stuff. So this is a child that is going to be busy in extracurricular activities. They're going to be learning instruments. They're going to be learning sports. They're going to be learning debate team or spelling bees or whatever that looks like, whatever they're responding to. And a lot of times as parents, we can kind of push our kids to do things we think that they should be doing. And it's not actually what they want to be doing. And so the more that we can ask our generator kids yes and no questions and let them make their sounds for yes and for no, we're going to be able to really get a clue on, is this something they want to be doing? Well, is now the right time for you to do it? Do you need some more support in order to start this? Okay. And then talking about what that looks like. And then once you get some clarity, then you can ask them some yes or no questions. And my daughter, who's in college, and she just graduated, actually, when she was in college, she would call me up and be like, okay, there's some classes that I want to take. And she would give me the rundown. And then I would come up with the yes or no questions to ask her so that she could get really clear and develop that self-awareness. Because as a generator type, you're designed to be very self-aware, but it doesn't come from your mind. It's going to come from your gut.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. And I think that yes, no question and the teaching our kids, especially like the pure sacral beings, that is so incredibly powerful. You know, one of the things that I suspect is so much of, you know, because I was diagnosed as a kid with dyslexia. And I think so much of, I mean, I am an emotional authority, but it comes from that like confusion of information, like so much being asked or big complicated questions. So just paring it down and keeping it super simple, especially for kids, those yes, no, just teach them. I literally said to my youngest yesterday, is like, I said, remember, you just have to trust your gut. Like, what does your gut say? And oftentimes when my kids will ask me, you know, mum, should I this, or what do you think I should do about that? I'm always like, same as what you just said, like I'll just flip it around and ask them a question and then just remind them, like, just trust your gut. What does your gut say? Yeah, I think it's so powerful. And as a parenting tool as well, I think it's really powerful because it actually teaches us to be smarter with questions. You know, instead of asking these big open-ended questions, we actually have to make the effort to like ask more appropriate questions that do help them specify. And, you know, it avoids confusion and arguments and all sorts, because you can get really clear on, you know, what you both want from whatever's going on.
So the manifesting generators are very similar to the generators, but they do have that manifestor quality that the generators don't have. And truly, these are probably some of the most unique beings ever, because they also, like the manifestor, don't need others. The generator and the other types, they need other people. The manifestor and the manifesting generators don't, in order to manifest or create. And they are also here to work, unlike the manifestor. So this is a person that's completely unique. They are so designed to work, and they're sustainable, not like the cheetah. The cheetah can go fast and then has to for 2 minutes, right? But this is like a you know, those greyhounds, they can keep going and going and going and going.
Yep,
and they can go
definitely
so
a pack
fast.
of greyhounds.
Yes, and they're sustainable. Okay, so these are very unique, sustainable people. They don't need other people. So that's also that manifestor quality in him. He's like, no, you're not going to tell me what to do. And if you do, I'm just going to do the opposite in defiance of whatever you're telling me, because I want to prove to you I can do it. And they really can do it on their own.
Yeah.
So.
And this is really interesting. Like, he even uses that word all the time. He's got a defined will center as well. So it's not like he's coming from the not self, but he will literally say, I want to prove to you, like, I want to prove that you're wrong and I'm right. And I'm like, okay, cool. If you're willing to put that much effort in, you go for gold.
Well, and we got to understand, most of the population doesn't have a defined will center, but the defined will centers, in order for them to be physically healthy, they need to be making commitments that are correct for them. So finding something to prove to you is actually helping him stay physically healthy.
Yeah. I love that. Good. Then he's very, very healthy. So one of the questions I really want to ask about MGs, because obviously it's something, well, not obviously, but it's something that I've wrestled with. And it's definitely something that I see with my kids. And it's this thing that with MGs, we love the next shiny new object. We love the next passion. We love the next thing. So we're constantly like jumping from one thing to the next to the next. How do you parent that? You know, like, I know for me personally, and gratefully both my children are pure sacral authority, so no emotional authority. But, you know, it's been this dance between, you're always going to love the new thing. There's always going to be something new, or there's always going to be another road that you want to go down. That's super cool. But you also need to, you know, trust what you want to commit to, trust that you can commit to that. And there's going to be times when you don't want to do it, or it doesn't feel right, or whatever. But, you know, like, you have to learn that deeper feeling. It's what I talked about. It's like that deeper feeling of like, no, actually, I really love this. Like my eldest with surfing, you know, he loves it. And there's been times where he's been super challenged, where he said, oh, I don't want to go out in the water. I'm afraid it's too big, or the current's too whatever, but he just does it anyway, because he knows that the moment he gets out there, or in fact, probably when he comes back in, he's like, I feel great. That's exactly what I wanted to do. And then, you know, he loves it again. So how do we parent that? Because I know the other thing we hear a lot about MGs is like ADHD and all of these like attention deficit things. So how do we parent the multi-passionate that wants to jump from one thing to the next, and teach them that sometimes we commit and sometimes we can jump from one thing to the next?
So one, you want to give them permission to quit. You do want that, but at what expense? They have to be earning that ability to go to the next thing, depending on what's age and developmentally appropriate for your child. And so if they want to learn this new sport and it's going to be like a huge initial investment, then they need to put some skin in the game. And so the things that they want to learn, if it's something that you want to encourage them and you're willing to like, hey, here we go, let's get all this stuff set up for you. And if they say, okay, this really isn't what I want, I'm quitting, and it's correct for them to quit, and you're okay with that, then let them keep jumping around until they find what they love. And as they find the things that they love, they're going to get lit up. It's going to activate their sacral, and their sacral is going to keep pulling those things, those experiences to them. And if they're in a place where they're stuck and they're frustrated because maybe they have been quitting too soon, then they have to kind of earn that right to start something new. And it doesn't always have to be, money, right? Sometimes it's like, okay, well, if you want to play with this toy, you need to clean this one up. If you're willing to clean up this toy, then you can start unpackaging this other stuff over here. And if they're willing to do that, then obviously they're ready to go to the next thing.
Yeah. I love that. I think that's really powerful. And I see that, in both of my kids, that with when we give them the support and they commit and they get past that hump or that plateau, that's when things really start to show up for them. Beautiful. I did have a question, but my undefined ajna has let go of it. So let's move on to projectors.
Great. So the projector is one of the hardest strategies, in my opinion, because they need invitations, and you can't practice getting an invitation the way that you can kind of practice the other strategies, right? But the projectors are the true guides of the world. They have an open sacral, so they really struggle with knowing when enough is enough. And if you have a child with that is a projector, like I do, then letting them go in and out of things, but really giving them permission to quit and learn their energy by asking them questions that are open-ended, not yes or no questions, because yes or no questions are only for the generator types. The manifestor, you're not even supposed to ask them questions. You're just supposed to inform them like, hey, it would be really helpful to know if you're hungry or what you want to eat tonight, or please tell me, or, inform them. And then they will give you information, or maybe they won't. And then you just move forward because they didn't give you the information with whatever you want to do. For the projector, you want to be asking open-ended questions so that they get a lot of opportunity to talk things out. And so this is a child that you're going to be spending more time with, communicating and really making sure that you're setting aside that time, especially if they are wanting to start something or commit to something new, that they have a lot of time to talk it out. And when they're talking it out, mom and dad are not telling them, well, this is what I think you should do, and this is what you need to do, and here's my advice. No, mom and dad are saying, what I'm hearing you say is, there's a lot of reflective listening going on. I hear you say you're scared about this. Is there a way that we could set you up for success when it comes to this thing that you're telling me you're afraid of? And sometimes just talking it out, most of the time talking it out, projectors will be able to figure out what they need. But the worst thing you can do to a projector is fix them, because projectors are actually designed to fix, to fix themselves and to fix others. And so we don't want to go in and fix the projector. They are supposed to do that for themselves, but it can be hard for projectors to really have that self-awareness when it comes to them, because their aura is focused and penetrating. And so it hones in on the other person. And not only does it hone in on the other person's identity center, it also hones in on what's not working. And so these are children that looks like they're very cynical, like they complain a lot, and they are just trying to express their energy. So if you have a child that is venting and complaining a lot, that is a projector, they are noticing that something's not working and no one is giving them an invitation to fix it. And there can be two things going on with that. One is my son has told me that sometimes he feels this urge that he has to fix things, otherwise he's going to get into trouble. And then the other thing is that he's trying to get recognition and attention for his skills and for his ability. And so we want to make sure that we are recognizing these guides, because they don't have the energy doesn't operate the same as the generator types. And so also they're going to struggle with knowing when enough is enough and needing to rest.
Yeah. Oh my God, that is golden, golden. And I think about, so my husband, Justin's a projector, his mum's a projector, and his brother's a projector. And I feel like there's so much, unresourceful conditioning around that fixing piece, like Justin used to literally say, you have to let me make my own mistakes.
Yeah.
And it's fascinating, even within our family, within our relationship, you can imagine there's 3 MGs. We're all bouncing around like, oh, what's that? What's that? And sometimes I can feel like Justin's a bit pessimistic. Like, why are you always focused on the negative stuff? But yeah, like really starting to understand that actually it's not pessimism. It's not being negative. It's that there's a gap. He sees the gap.
Mm-hmm.
And, seeing it from that point of view, I think is so much more powerful, because then he can, engage the wisdom. Okay, let's talk about reflectors.
Yes. So the reflectors are the wise observers. These are children that are really complete mirrors for you, for their friends, for their school, for the community that they're in. And so if something is going on with this reflector child, it's really indicative of what's going on in your life, what's going on in their friends' lives, what's going on in the classroom that they're in, and so on and so forth. They don't really have a lot of consistency within their chart. And so they need consistent people that are going to be there and kind of let them borrow their aura, for energy, for protection, for whatever, for creativity. And that's going to allow this reflector to reflect in the world. And one of the things that's really interesting is that we do see that the projector and the reflector have a lot of similarities. They both have open sacrals, and the projectors kind of get exhausted if they overdo, just like the reflector. However, the difference is that the reflector is actually designed to reflect and amplify energy, and so they don't get as exhausted as the projector, because the projector isn't really designed to take in energy and amplify it and show people, hey, this is what's going on. They're designed to kind of hone in and say, hey, this is what needs to be fixed, this is broken. And they're designed to have fun. And so if they are inhibited from doing that, it's exhausting because they're not living out what they're designed to do. The reflector is actually designed to reflect. Yeah. And so the more that we can get them, reflecting and being in environments that are healthy for them, that they're observing healthy habits, healthy language, healthy traits, is going to be really impactful for them. And it's also, it can be somewhat easier if you have a reflector child, because if something's going on with them, you can kind of change the environment and then they change. You can put them in a different environment. And so as a reflector, if you have a reflector child, you want to have 3 to 5 places that they really like. Maybe it's a grocery store, maybe it's a park, maybe it's, a little candy shop or something that you can take them to, or a garden that they can go to that they really enjoy, that they really like, so that they feel good in that energy and in that environment. And if they're having a bad day, if they're upset, kind of taking them to one of those environments, whether it's in your house. They really need to like the way that the room is set up, or whatever play places that are kind of theirs to have. They really need to like the way that it's set up. And they might rearrange furniture often. Let them do that, because that's also a way for them to kind of manage and discharge some of that energy that they're picking up.
Oh my God, I love that. So I just have to say, obviously I'm an MG, but in my sidereal chart, I'm a reflector. And I, at first, like I have always had this real like passion, obsession with the reflector, because they're just, to me, they seem like they're magical. Like the way that they can see energy coming just is amazing. And I used to, as a kid, and I mean, I don't even know what if I really invest much energy in the sidereal stuff, but as a kid, I used to move my furniture around all the time, like all the time. When I was feeling flat, I would always do it. I love that. Oh my goodness, Kristen, that was amazing.
Yeah,
I think there's so many cool insights for parents out there. We are, as I've said, we are doing a series, so we're going to bring you 2 more episodes. What are we talking about? We're talking about profile, and what was the other?
We're going to do a parenting by authority.
That's it. Yes.
Because there are other authorities. And then we're also going to be looking at the profiles, because every profile has a wound. And whenever you understand your child's wound, for example, the 4th line is feeling unaccepted. 4th lines need friendship. And so their wound is when they don't feel accepted. And so understanding that if you have a child that's a 4th line, they are going to be afraid that you don't accept them or love them when you're reprimanding them or disciplining them, and understanding where that's coming from so that you can kind of start to mitigate that and create that acceptance within that teaching moment.
So good. I love that. And I have 2 line 4s. So, I see it with my youngest. In fact, Justin and I were talking about on the weekend, like Just said to me, why does Oscar seem like sometimes he's afraid that his friends won't like him, or that what? And I'm like, he's a line 4, babe. He's really aware of his friends and his people and what they think of him. And he has an emotionally defined generator best friend. So I think that emotional wave messes with his line 4, like,
oh, absolutely.
Does he like me?
Does he take it personal? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. But anyway, we will get into that in the other episodes. So thank you so much for joining me today.
Yes,
it's been so powerful. And I look forward to having you all. I hope you've all enjoyed listening, and you've got some really good tips on how to parent your child. Everything that you need to know if you're not in HDX, so therefore you don't have access to Kristen's stuff, we will put her contact details in the show notes as well. And yes, stay tuned, because you're going to hear a little bit more. Thanks again, Kristen. Thanks everyone for listening, and I look forward to having you on the next podcast. Bye for now. Thanks everyone for being here all the way to the end of the podcast. I hope you got lots of value out of it. I certainly had a lot of fun doing it. Could I please ask that you share this podcast with friends if you found it valuable? And also, bonus points, could you leave a review for me as well on Apple? It would be greatly appreciated. If at any point you would like to be on the podcast, or you've got questions that you'd like me to discuss on the podcast, by all means, get on my socials and DM me. Everything you need is there in the show notes. Have an awesome day. Bye for now.